There's a kind of tired that sleep cannot fix, not the tired that comes from working long hours, the kind that comes from doing everything people told you to do and still feeling like you're falling behind. If you've ever looked at your bank account the day after payday and wondered where it all went, this story might feel painfully familiar because this isn't really Elijah's story. It's the story of millions of young adults who are trying to build a life using rules that quietly stopped working years ago. Elijah was 24 years old when he began believing something was wrong with him. He lived in a one-bedroom apartment just outside Charlotte. Nothing fancy. Beige walls, thin carpet, a small balcony that overlooked a crowded parking lot. Every morning before the sun came up, he stood there with a cup of coffee in one hand and his phone in the other, convincing himself that if he just kept going, things would eventually get easier. He worked as a customer service representative for a logistics company. The job wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. He arrived early, rarely called in sick, stayed late when deadlines demanded it. His manager trusted him. His coworkers liked him. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't trying to become rich overnight. He was simply trying to build the kind of life he had been promised. Growing up, Elijah had heard the same advice over and over again. Study hard, stay out of trouble, get a good job, work hard, save your money, everything else will fall into place. His parents believed every word because those words had worked for them. His father bought his first house before turning 28. His mother stayed home while raising Elijah and his younger sister during their early years. Money wasn't abundant, but it was predictable. Bills were paid. Christmas still came. Family vacations happened every few summers. When something broke, they fixed it. When something unexpected happened, they somehow managed. To Elijah, that looked like adulthood. So he followed the same blueprint. He graduated from college, carrying student loans that his parents never had to worry about. He accepted the first full-time job that offered health insurance. He rented a modest apartment, bought a reliable used sedan because public transportation barely reached his office, signed up for automatic payments because every financial article told him responsible adults paid bills on time. He wasn't chasing luxury. He was chasing normal. Every other Friday, his phone buzzed at exactly 6:12 in the morning, direct deposit received. For a few seconds, it felt amazing. He would smile. Sometimes he even opened the banking app just to look at the number. For a brief moment, possibility returned. This week will be different. He said those words more times than he could count. Then reality quietly began collecting its share. Rent disappeared first, insurance followed, car payment, student loan, electricity, phone bill, internet, groceries, gas, a streaming subscription he'd forgotten to cancel months ago, cloud storage, a gym membership he barely used anymore because he was always too tired after work. Nothing looked outrageous on its own. $20 here, $40 there, $12.99, $9.99, $38, $62. Little numbers, but together they behave like tiny holes in a bucket. Individually, they seemed harmless. Together, they emptied everything. By Sunday evening, Elijah would open his banking app again. The excitement from Friday had vanished. The balance stared back at him. Not zero, but close enough that every unexpected expense suddenly felt dangerous. One flat tire, one medical bill, one broken appliance. That was all it would take. He wasn't living paycheck to paycheck because he spent recklessly. He was living paycheck to paycheck because every dollar already had somewhere else to go before he even earned it. Still, when he opened Instagram, life looked very different. Former classmates smiled beside new homes, weekend trips to Miami, luxury apartments with rooftop pools, designer sneakers, brand new SUVs, engagement announcements, promotions. One caption read, "Hard work always pays off." Elijah stared at the screen for a long time, then quietly whispered, "I'm working hard too." No one heard him. He locked his phone and went to bed. A few weeks later, after one particularly exhausting Friday, he stopped by a shopping center on his way home. He had no intention of buying anything. He was just walking, looking, escaping. Then he saw a pair of sneakers he had wanted for months. They cost almost $300. He stood there arguing with himself. You don't need them. But you've been working so hard. You should save the money. You deserve something nice. Eventually, he bought them. The drive home felt exciting. Opening the box felt exciting. Wearing them the next morning felt exciting. By Monday afternoon, the excitement was gone. The credit card bill remained. For the first time, Elijah understood something uncomfortable. He hadn't bought sneakers. He had rented a feeling. And feelings expire much faster than monthly payments. The old voice inside him became louder. Maybe your dad was right. Maybe you're just bad with money. You make more than your parents did. So why are you always struggling? That sentence haunted him, not because strangers said it, because his father had. His father wasn't criticizing him. He was confused. One Saturday afternoon, Elijah drove to his parents' house for dinner. After they finished eating, his father invited him into the garage. Old filing cabinets lined one wall. Dust floated through sunlight coming from a small window near the ceiling. His father smiled as he pulled out a worn manila envelope. I want to show you something. Inside was the purchase agreement for the family's first house. The paper had yellowed with age. The edges were worn from years of being folded and unfolded. His father pointed proudly at one number. $84,000. Then another. Monthly payment, $610. He laughed. I thought that payment would ruin me. Elijah laughed too, but something inside him had gone quiet. Without saying a word, he reached for his phone. He searched the same neighborhood, the same street, homes roughly the same size. The first listing appeared, $512,000. He refreshed the page. Another $498,000. Another $536,000. He looked back at the faded receipt, then back at his phone. Again. Neither number was wrong. They simply belonged to two different economies. His father noticed the silence. What is it? Elijah turned the screen around. His father stared. For several seconds. Neither of them spoke. Finally, his father sighed. I didn't realize it had become this. Neither had Elijah. That night, he couldn't sleep. He wasn't angry at his father. He wasn't angry at himself. He kept asking one question. What if I've been measuring myself against a world that doesn't exist anymore? The next morning, he began comparing everything. College tuition, medical insurance, rent, used car prices, interest rates, groceries, childcare costs. His salary had increased compared to what his father earned at the same age, but almost everything else had increased even faster. Suddenly, the story changed. He wasn't losing a game because he refused to work. He was trying to win a completely different game using yesterday's rulebook. That realization didn't solve his problems, but it did remove something much heavier. Shame. Once the shame disappeared, curiosity took its place. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? He started asking, what actually works today? That question changed everything. Not overnight. Slowly, painfully, he canceled subscriptions one by one, cooked more meals at home, started tracking every dollar without judging himself, built a tiny emergency fund. It wasn't impressive. $100, then $200, eventually $500. His coworkers teased him when he packed lunch. Friends joked that he had become boring because he stopped saying yes to every expensive weekend plan. Some weekends he almost gave in. The old voice returned. They're making memories. You're missing your 20s. But another voice had quietly grown stronger. They're spending today. You're protecting tomorrow. Months passed. Nothing looked dramatic from the outside. There was no viral success story, no lottery ticket, no overnight investment miracle, just hundreds of ordinary decisions nobody else noticed. Then one Friday morning, his paycheck arrived. His phone buzzed like always. He opened the banking app. Only this time, something felt different. The bills were already planned. His emergency fund still existed. Money automatically moved into investments before he could spend it. For the first time since starting his career, his paycheck didn't feel like temporary relief. It felt like a tool. Years earlier, Elijah believed financial success meant looking successful. Now he understood something far more valuable. Looking wealthy and becoming financially secure are often two completely different journeys. The internet rarely celebrates quiet progress. Nobody posts screenshots of canceled subscriptions. Nobody throws parties because their emergency fund reached $1,000. Nobody goes viral for finally understanding compound investing. But those invisible victories are often the ones that quietly change an entire life. The biggest lie Elijah ever believed wasn't that hard work guaranteed success. Hard work still matters, education still matters, discipline still matters. But when the rules of the economy change, repeating yesterday's advice without questioning it can leave hardworking people wondering why they're exhausted. The problem wasn't that Elijah refused to work. The problem was that nobody had explained the new game, and once he finally understood the rules, he stopped trying to impress people who weren't paying his bills. He started building a future that didn't need anyone else's approval. Because the most dangerous financial advice isn't always bad advice. Sometimes it's simply advice that belonged to another generation. The question isn't whether you're working hard enough. The question is whether you're still trying to win yesterday's game while today's game quietly plays by entirely different rules.